What's up, Flick Connection? This is Darren, here to help you get more out of movies, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, Mean Streets, why you should watch it, and things you should know when you watch it. Now, contrary to popular belief, Mean Streets is not Martin Scorsese's first movie. He actually did two before it, but it is his first fairly big movie. It's the first one to get a really wide release, and it's the first one to do well, and it's certainly the first one he was really noticed for. It's also one of the first movies Robert De Niro was noticed for, and this movie has just got a really great ensemble cast, but De Niro really stands out in this movie. Now, if you feel like you're a fan of Scorsese's work, or you're a fan of old Robert De Niro, nobody's a fan of, I say early Robert De Niro. Nobody's really a fan of old-ass Robert De Niro, but if you're a fan of early De Niro, this is a must-watch. If you're a fan of Scorsese's classics like Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, if somehow this one has eluded you because it's older, it's his first, you need to watch this movie. It is required viewing. And what I want to do is tell you some interesting things about this movie that won't spoil it, and then I'm going to get into some spoilers for those of you who have seen the movie, but I'll be sure to give you an alert before I do that. Before we get into that, if you like this shirt, you want to support the channel, I've got a bunch of pretty cool designs. I say they're pretty cool because I designed them in our Teespring store. I'll put a link in the description below. Now, like I said, this is the first movie for Scorsese and De Niro to work on together. They would go on to do 7 movies together, ending with Casino, and they haven't done a movie since until now. They just are wrapping up the filming on The Irishman, which is set to come out on Netflix, yes, on Netflix, later in 2018.
A mook? What's a mook?
I don't know.
You can't call me a mook.
I can't?
No.
I give you more.
Now, what I really like about this movie are all the little moments in it. Now, it does have kind of a plot. It's got a thin plot, like a lot of Scorsese's movies, but it's more about the day-to-day activities in these guys' lives. Now, it is sort of a mob movie, but it's basically about guys that are really on the outskirts. So we're seeing some crime, but we're really just seeing sort of the low-level stuff and guys that kind of want to work their way in. But that aside, it really is about the characters, and it's this slice of life in New York in the 70s that most of us would never be able to experience. You can experience it really effectively with this movie, which is really what I love most about movies, is it allows me and you, two completely different people in completely different places, to have a shared experience. Like all Scorsese movies, Mean Streets has a killer soundtrack. So killer, in fact, that the cost to acquire all of the tracks you hear in this movie took up 50% of the entire film budget. Interesting fact about the camera work in Mean Streets is Mean Streets is in kind of an early pioneer for handheld cinematography. It's not the first one to do it, but it really innovated a lot of techniques, purely on the basis that they had almost no budget for this movie. They essentially, especially because they spent half of it on the soundtrack, but they had to invent a lot of ways to use the camera. You'll see that when you watch it. They do use dollies and things, but there is a lot of handheld moments as well. And there's a famous one where a camera is literally strapped to Harvey Keitel in a drunk scene. It gives you sort of that woozy feeling. Brilliant use of the camera, and it's something we've seen used a lot since then, but this movie's really responsible for pioneering at least a handful of handheld techniques. Now, Quentin Tarantino has actually stated that the look and feel of much of Pulp Fiction is based on the look and feel of Mean Streets. And you can really get that from a couple of things, but for me, it's mostly the club that the guys hang out in Mean Streets. It's mostly lit with red lights, and you see this in Pulp Fiction with Marcellus Wallace's club when he's talking to Bruce Willis, when he's talking to Butch. It looks almost identical to the club that you spend half of your time in Mean Streets. The church that we see several times in the movie is a famous church in Little Italy in New York where everything was filmed for this movie, or almost all of it was filmed. But that was actually the same church featured in the famous baptism scene in The Godfather. Another note on The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola actually he didn't co-fund Mean Streets, but he put up a significant chunk of money towards the funding for this picture. Now, Robert De Niro was offered the pick of multiple roles. He was an up-and-comer. They wanted him for the movie. He was going to be able to pick from 4 of the 4 major roles in the movie. He wasn't sure what he wanted. When Harvey Keitel came on board, he really convinced him to pick the role of Johnny Boy. Now, Johnny Boy is really... he's the secondary character in the movie, but the storyline really revolves around Johnny Boy, and he is just a crazy character. The first time we see him, where we're introduced to him and we see his name on screen, he's just thrown a cherry bomb into a public mailbox. He's just a real maniac, and it was a misconception for a while that this is kind of who Robert De Niro really was. He was such a good chameleon in his early career, but people thought because this is one of his first roles that that's who he really was. Not the case. This character is actually based on one of Scorsese's uncles, who was himself just an absolute maniac. I want to jump into some spoilers. There's not really a good way to spoil this movie, so if you want to hang with me before watching this movie, you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to get into some things that might be surprising throughout, so you might want to bail, come back and watch the rest of it, because we're going to talk about what the ending of this movie actually means eventually. Now, there's a cameo, there's a couple of cameos, but there's a cameo, the drunk in the bathroom. If you've seen the movie, there's a scene where a drunk gets shot in the bathroom. He's at the men's urinal. That's actually David Carradine. It really doesn't look like him, in my opinion, because he's so young, but that's David Carradine. And then the shooter, who's even younger, with the long hair, that's Robert Carradine. Now, if that name doesn't sound as familiar as David Carradine, you will remember Robert Carradine from Revenge of the Nerds. Now, enough of the facts. Let's just talk a little bit about what this movie is actually about. Now, Harvey Keitel's character, he spends the majority of the movie really just kind of struggling to do the right thing. Now, yes, he is kind of easing himself into the mob, but the movie opens with him essentially in confession. He's constantly trying to do what he thinks is best, not just for him, but for the people around him, including Johnny Boy. And ultimately, these efforts are what does him in. Let's just say leads to his demise for the time being, because we're going to get to that in a second. It's not because he was trying to do the right thing, but ultimately, he's unable to do the right thing. He's kind of trying to rise above. Yes, he is trying to work for his uncle who is in the mob, but he's, it's to like run a restaurant. He's trying to just do well for himself, and he wants the right thing to be done for everyone around him. He really is the ringleader in the movie, but the guilt by association ends up being one of the morals of Mean Streets. So the loyalty that Little Italy, the culture in Little Italy rather, bred into this character, or these characters, paired with sort of the poverty and the underbelly, the crime underbelly, really is what leads to the climax of the movie, where all of our main characters are essentially assassinated in their car. Now, my thoughts on the end is it sort of leaves you hanging. You don't know what's going to happen, but my thoughts are that Johnny Boy is the only one to die. Now, the other characters are severely injured. Even Harvey Keitel, he's shot in the hand, which is significant. We see his hand referenced multiple times. Him with the fire, he's always touching a flame, just trying to sort of like go ahead and test the fires of hell, essentially. Go ahead and experiencing a little bit of pain on earth to maybe alleviate time spent in purgatory after death. That's essentially what he's doing, and that is roughly a roundabout belief in the Catholic Church. Now, Johnny Boy, on the other hand, has an arterial spray, a big one, a lot of blood coming out of his neck, and the last time we see him, he's literally stumbling down an alley, stumbling towards the light. There's a light source at the end that we can't see. He's stumbling towards it, and I believe that represents him dying, and I'm not saying he deserves to die, but if any of those three characters deserve to die within the context of the story, it would be Johnny Boy. He screws everybody over that he can. He's got no respect for anybody. He's essentially the polar opposite of Harvey Keitel in the movie. And that plays out really, really well. So aside from me just liking all the elements, just like Goodfellas, I like all the characters, I like all the interactions that they have. The way this movie ends, really the first time I saw it, I was really surprised. Because it feels like there's no plot. It feels like we're in a car with characters that we like, and we're really just going nowhere. But we end up just crashing into a brick wall at the end. I think it's just a brilliant, I almost want to call it Scorsese's directorial debut. It's not, but it's really the first like real Scorsese movie. I think it's almost a masterpiece. There's some pacing issues. I think one or two scenes that could be cut and you would have a masterpiece. So it's really just about eliminating one or two 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of footage tops, and then you've got a masterpiece. That's my opinion on this movie. If you've seen Mean Streets, if you love it, if you hate it, if it was boring, whatever, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this, watch this series. I've just recently started it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If I get positive feedback and enough views, I will continue to make videos like this. Thanks for watching this one though, and you will see me next time.